Hello music fans and welcome to the Death by Unicorn channel. I'm making this video about some anticipated albums that I'll be listening to that are coming out in the first quarter of 2023. I've got 36 albums on this list, so I'll try to rapid fire through them. I mostly focus on metal, rock, and progressive music, and I'll let you know when one of the albums that I mentioned is in my top 5 most anticipated for the quarter. Let's start off with January 6th. We've got Anti-Flag releasing Lies They Tell Our Children. This is punk rock with hardcore and pop influences. It's their 13th album. I've only listened to one of their albums in full before, which was their 6th album from 2006 for Blood and Empire. Always liked it, never really loved it though, so I didn't keep following them. I listened to a single from this new album. I expect some catchy, poppy punk rock. Maybe a bit of hardcore influence on there too, although the single didn't have any, so they might have grown out of that sound that they used to have. On the same day, Kornmo is releasing Vandring, and this is instrumental progressive rock. It's the 4th album from this instrumental trio from Norway, and I've never heard of them before, but it's prog rock, so I'll check it out. On January 10th, Weddingoth is releasing 5 Stars Above. This is progressive gothic metal. It's their 4th album. They're a French band. I've never listened to any of their previous work. They've got a female vocalist, and while she has some power and skill, there's something about her timbre that didn't really click with me, so I'm not super into her voice. But the guitar and bass playing is pretty cool. The bass stood out to me as being particularly good on the song Cross the Mirror. The drums are also well played, but I was hoping for something more on the composition of the drums to make this more interesting. On January 13th, Ahab is releasing The Coral Tombs. This is progressive funeral doom metal. It's the 5th album by this German band, but their first in almost 8 years. The vocals sound intense, heavy, and brutal as hell when they do growls and screams, but also beautiful and sad during the clean singing parts. I expect slow and sad music that takes you on a journey. Also on January 13th, Polar is releasing Everywhere Everything. This is post-hardcore. It's the 5th album by this UK band, and I've never listened to anything by them before, but the one single I've heard, I haven't listened to a full album, but the one single I heard is pretty catchy and well done. On January 20th, Katatonia is releasing Sky Void of Stars. This is progressive metal with some doom, gothic, alternative, and heavy metal influences. It's the 12th album by this Swedish band, and this is in my top 5 most anticipated albums of the quarter. While I don't think they have any bad albums in their discography, I particularly love the last 5 albums in a row that they've done. Lately, they've been getting more and more progressive, and they have nearly completely abandoned their early career death doom and black metal sound, but they still have a bit of those influences in there. On the same day, Riverside is releasing Identity. This is progressive rock kind of metal, progressive rock / metal. The 8th album by this Polish band. I really enjoyed the single I'm Done With You. If you're a fan of bands like Leprous, Soen, and Haken, you'll like this because it's kind of progressive metal, but there's no screaming, so it's a bit softer progressive metal. On January 27th, Steve Vai is releasing Vai/Gash, and this is hard rock with metal and pop influences. It's his 11th album, but actually this was recorded a long time ago. This was a shelved, straight-ahead rock album that he made in 1991 with the vocalist Johnny Gash Sombretto. He shelved the project after Gash died in a bike accident in 1998. At the time of making this, Vai was fresh off of stints in David Lee Roth's solo band and Whitesnake, and he made this Vai Gash project as a logical extension of those endeavors. So that'll be kind of interesting to hear him doing something that's less of his typical guitar virtuoso stuff and more like vocal hard rock. Interested to hear that. On January 27th, we also have Uriah Heep releasing Chaos in Color. This is the 25th album by this English band who's been going for a long time. It's kind of hard rock. They've got a little bit of prog and heavy metal influences. I'll listen to this out of respect for their long career, but I don't have high expectations for that these old dinosaurs will make anything groundbreaking, but maybe they'll surprise me. January 31st, the Smashing Pumpkins is releasing Atom Act 2. This is alternative rock with pop influences. It's their 12th album. I thought Atom Act 1 was decent, but it didn't stand out too much to me among everything I listened to in 2022, so I'm hoping Act 2 can wow me in a little more than Act 1 did. On February 3rd, the Winery Dogs is releasing 3. This is hard rock with blues and progressive influences. It's obviously their 3rd album. They're an American supergroup that features Mike Portnoy of Dream Theater fame, also from Transatlantic, Liquid Tension Experiment, and Sons of Apollo on drums, and Billy Sheehan on bass. And he's played with Steve Vai, David Lee Roth, and more. And Richie Kotzen on guitar and vocals, who's played with Poison among other groups. I prefer the more progressive projects that Mike Portnoy does over this one, but I like to listen to anything with his great drumming on it, so I'll be checking this out. Also on February 3rd, Shania Twain is releasing Queen of Me. This is pop country. It's the 6th album by this Canadian icon. I usually don't like pop country, but Shania is one of the few exceptions to that. Could be a little bit of nostalgia because I grew up hearing her music, and she's from Timmins, Ontario, where I used to live. But I also truly think she makes some of the most undeniably catchy pop country, and it's not as cheesy, cliche, and annoying as most of the male artists in that genre are, who I can't stand. On February 10th, In Flames is releasing Foregone. This is alternative metal with melodic death metal and metalcore influences. It's their 14th album. They're kind of Swedish melodic death metal pioneers, and their more recent output has been more on the alternative metal side, but the early release singles sound like they're bringing back some of their older sound, which will likely excite a lot of fans. I'm weird and unusual with my taste for In Flames music, and I actually like a lot of their alternative metal releases better than their early classic melodic death metal albums. But this is in my top 5 most anticipated albums of the first quarter of 2023. February 10th, also we have Paramore with This Is Why. This is pop rock with some punk and alternative influences. It's the 6th album by this American band. I feel like they lost a bit of their edge when Josh Farrow, the founding guitarist, left the band. But I hope to hear something that rivals their earlier work with him. Hayley Williams is an iconic female pop punk emo vocalist who performs at a top-notch level, so that'll be interesting to hear. On the same day, Pierce the Veil is releasing The Jaws of Life. That's post-hardcore with progressive rock influences. It's the 5th album by this American group, and I always enjoy their work. They've never quite cracked my top 200 favorite bands because I just like so many bands, but they've always been like a B-list favorite of mine. They've got that emo vocal style, so you have to be ready for that, but they always have cool compositions, great guitar work, and catchy hooks. On the same day as well, February 10th is a stacked day. We have Clone releasing Meanwhile. This is progressive metal or progressive rock. It's the 7th album by this French band. They sing in English, even though they're from France. I heard one of the singles and the vocals sound great. I like that they don't sound too djenty like a lot of the modern progressive metal bands. They have more of the early 2000s alternative metal and new metal guitar tone, which is cool to hear. On the same day, E Molecule is releasing The Architect. This is progressive rock. It's the debut album by 2 former members of the band Sound of Contact, Simon Collins, who is the son of legendary Phil Collins, and then Kelly Nordstrom. The early single I heard here sounded cerebral and hypnotic, reminiscent of Tool, but without as much metal bite to it. It's more kind of ambient progressive rock. On the same day, we have Distant releasing Heritage. This is deathcore. It's the 3rd album by this Dutch band. I listened to a couple of the early singles. It sounds pretty intense, but I'm not sure if it will go beyond the typical deathcore style, or if it will just play it safe for the full album and kind of stay in the deathcore lane. On February 17th, we have another deathcore release with See You Next Tuesday releasing Distractions. It's their 3rd album by this American band, but it's actually their first in a while. They since 2008, so it took 15 years since the last album. They did a 6-year hiatus from 2009 to 2015 and reunited in 2015 to keep touring, but they haven't made any new material till now. And I'm not usually a big deathcore fan, but this might be my favorite deathcore band, unless you count like I Wrestled a Bear Once as deathcore, but I see them as more like avant-garde mathcore or metalcore with some deathcore moments. If you wish a band like Lorna Shore had a little more mathcore and a little less symphonic influences, that's kind of what See You Next Tuesday sounds like, so this could be up your alley. On the same day, we have All My Shadows releasing Eerie Monsters. This is heavy metal. It's the debut album of this new band featuring 2 members of the German progressive metal band Vandenplas. Also, February 17th, Half Me is releasing Soma. This is metalcore. It's a debut album for this German band. I heard one single. It had a mix of heavy riffs and screaming with catchy hooks and singing, so I'm curious to hear what this band will do on their debut album. On the same day, we have Pink releasing Trustfall. This is pop or pop rock, a little bit of rock influence in there. The 9th album by this American pop superstar, and I liked some of her hit songs back when I was like 13 years old, so I still kind of like those songs for nostalgia reasons. She's a great and powerful singer, so I'm planning to check this out to see if I can enjoy her music even without the nostalgia factor. On February 24th, we have Hypnos, which is spelt with a 5 instead of an S for some reason, releasing Sheol. And this is avant-garde progressive metal with post-metal influences. It's the 6th album by this French band, and I'm surprised I've never listened to an album by them before. This sounds like something I'll enjoy a lot from the early single I heard. Also February 24th, Insomnium is releasing Anno 1696. This is melodic death metal. It's the 9th album by this Finnish band. For fans of In Flames, kind of sounds like In Flames meets Winter Sun to me from the early single I heard. On March 3rd, Haken is releasing Fauna. This is progressive metal. It's the 7th album by this amazing band from the UK, and this is my most anticipated album, probably the whole year, 2023 at this point. I love Haken. I saw them live in 2022 with Symphony X, which was probably my favorite live concert I saw in 2022, and I saw some great ones, including Porcupine Tree, the Mars Volta, Opeth Mastodon, and King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, so it's saying a lot. Everything Haken puts out is top-notch. I think this album could be what makes them the kings of progressive metal, possibly taking that crown from bands like Dream Theater, Symphony X, and Between the Buried and Me. On the same day as Haken, we have Enslaved releasing Heimdal. This is progressive black metal, their 16th album by this Swedish band. They've never made a bad album, but I really start to love their last 7 albums in a row when they lean towards progressive metal more than black metal. They've always had bits of both prog and black metal in their music, and they still do, but they've been shifting more towards the progressive side than the black metal side over the years, which I like. Don't get me wrong though, this album will still please black metal fans. I think it has that intensity. I just think it could also appeal to prog fans who don't like black metal if they can overlook the harsh vocal style or appreciate it. This is in my top 5 most anticipated albums of the first quarter of 2023 as well. March 10th, we have Rival Sons releasing Dark Fighter. This is hard rock with blues influences. It's the 7th album by this American band. From the early single, it sounds like this will have a bit of an old school vibe, but with modern production. For fans of Led Zeppelin, but kind of like a modern thing, maybe a little bit like Greta Van Fleet, but not too much of a copycat of Led Zeppelin. They're kind of doing their own thing. On the same day, Suicide Silence is releasing Remember You Must Die. This is deathcore. It's the 7th album by this American band, and it sounds like pretty typical deathcore to me, but I'm checking it out because they're a big name in the deathcore scene, so I'm curious to hear what they're doing. On March 17th, Redemption is releasing I Am the Storm. This is progressive metal. It's the 7th album by this American band. This band features Tom England of Evergrey on vocals, and I really enjoy Evergrey, so I think I'll like this. On Also March 17th, RPWL is releasing Crime Scene. This is progressive rock. It's the 8th album by this German prog rock band who sings in English. For some more deathcore, also on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th, we have Chelsea Grin releasing Suffer in Heaven. It's the 7th album by this American band as well. I heard their Suffer in Hell release from 2022 and I liked it, but I didn't love it. I hope this one brings some more experimentation and is a little bit more interesting than Suffer in Hell. On March 24th, Obliviscaris is releasing EXUL. This is extreme progressive metal. It's the 4th album by this Australian band. This band is amazing. This is one of my 5 most anticipated albums of the first quarter of 2023. If you're a fan of An Abstract Illusion, Persephone, and Wilderun, they bring the brutality, but they also bring the beauty. You'll love Obliviscaris. They feature extreme harsh vocals, but also beautiful clean singing and violin. Also March 24th, August Burns Red is releasing Death Below. This is metalcore, their 10th album. They're American metalcore giants at this point. I like everything they do. Again, they've never quite cracked my top 200 favorite bands. They've always been a B-list favorite of mine. Also March 24th, Baby Metal is releasing the other one. This is kind of power metal, I guess, but it's got pop influences, specifically J-pop. So they call this kawaii metal. I don't know if I recognize that as an actual genre, but maybe it's going to become a genre. So kawaii metal, if that counts as a genre, I guess that's what this is. This is the 4th album from this Japanese band. I feel like their music is more of a meme than being a real band, but it's still kind of catchy and interesting, so I'll check it out. Is this what happens when like young women in Japan who maybe couldn't make it big in the J-pop scene team up with a metal band and become even bigger than they ever could have imagined? I guess so. March 31st, Bury Tomorrow is releasing The Seventh Son. This is metalcore. It's the 7th album by this British band. I listened to their last album and thought it was kind of average, but they have some potential, so I want to hear if they can do better on this one. And last album that I'm going to mention for today's video is Kingsman on March 31st, releasing Bones Don't Lie. This is metalcore with deathcore influences. It's the 2nd album by this American band, and I've never listened to an album by this band before, but I heard the single Dead Letter, and it's a powerful metal ballad. It's a slow burn that builds up to a heavy and intense breakdown, so I became interested to hear more. Hope some of the albums on this list sound of interest to you, and hope that you check them out. Follow and subscribe to my channel if you want to see my first impressions of these when they come out. I plan to release kind of weekly videos talking about all the new stuff I listened to in 2023 and giving my first impressions. If I'm not too lazy, I might also post a Spotify playlist in the description of this video with one song from each of these releases that I mentioned in the video. No promises there, that's if I'm not lazy. Anyways, until next time, peace out.